In October of 2022, Intel finally launched its long-awaited Arc A700 series to the world. Since then, I've been tracking the performance of the A770 to see if it has improved from the initial reviews. This video is the culmination of that testing and the end of this monthly series. So how are things with the Arc A700 series as it stands 6 months later? Let's talk about it. To start off, I want to quote PC World's GPU reviewer Brad Charkis' verdict on launch day. The Arc A770 Limited Edition is a graphics card that offers great value in some scenarios, but too many frustrating caveats to outright recommend. Despite those quibbles, it's an encouraging start to Intel's GPU ambitions. To varying degrees, that sentiment was shared by many reviewers, including myself. But in the weeks following launch, the PC hardware community began speculating, wondering, and even hoping that performance and stability would improve over time. That idea is what sparked this 6-month series that I started here on the channel. I wanted to see how Intel was handling its first foray into the dedicated graphics card space since the abysmal i750 20 plus years ago. But while my official monthly updates are coming to an end, I'll still be testing Arc as well as GeForce and Radeon GPUs moving forward, so be sure to subscribe to see future testing. But when it comes to Arc's history so far, updates are key here. When these graphics cards launched, as shaky as they did, Intel promised and consumers rightly expected regular updates. Looking back 6 months later, it's easy to say that Intel has delivered on that promise so far. 8 driver releases in 6 months is nothing to sneeze at, and these cards did need them in order to win back the hearts and minds of gamers. Bringing a fully featured graphics card line to market is no easy feat, even for a company as big as Intel. And they even admitted that their fair share of stumbles getting out of the door. Luckily, most of these updates post-launch brought something that users and reviewers were asking for. Platform stability, non-DX12 optimizations, and a non-full-screen Arc Control Center, among others. Yes, there's still plenty left to do and features that were shown that need to materialize, but the general sentiment I've seen so far is that Intel is indeed heading in the right direction. With so many updates came potential improvements into gaming performance, so let's jump into some benchmark numbers comparing launch driver performance to where we are today. All tests were done with the A750 and A770 limited edition cards and performed on my X570 test bench with a Ryzen 9 5900X at the helm, and resizable bar was engaged. 32GB of DDR4 3600 DRAM rounds out the core of the system, and all of the games were played from a PCIe Gen 4 NVMe SSD. Now keep in mind that if a game in the list wasn't available at the initial Arc launch, then its launch driver will be the driver that was out when the game launched. With all of that out of the way, let's get into the results. First up is Cyberpunk 2077 using Ultra settings, sans ray tracing, and this title didn't really treat either Arc card so kindly at launch, but you can see both have had slight improvements since launch to where they are now. Both the A750 and A770 received benefits at 1440p, but the A750 didn't get much of a lift at 1080p. Watch Dogs Legion, on the other hand, showcases very little to write home about. The A770 even lost a little average FPS performance, but made up for it slightly by increasing 1% lows. So in this title at least, average performance didn't improve, but the experience did get a bit smoother. Horizon Zero Dawn is a title that gained a healthy increase almost across the board since launch. The A770 certainly had the healthier gains here, but that shows driver overhead reduction, most likely freeing up the CPU to feed it even more. Borderlands 3 running in DX12 saw little improvement, mainly since these cards were built for DX12 and Vulkan to begin with. These increases present themselves in both average FPS and 1% lows for both cards, but nothing standing out as big wins. Troy Total War runs DX11 and I tested it using Ultra settings. While the A750 didn't return massive changes, the A770 appears to have been unleashed with this one, with more than 10% performance gains. Curiously, the 1% lows at 1080p were greatly improved, but not a lot of change for 1440p. Shadow of the Tomb Raider showed almost the exact opposite story as Troy, with gains only showing up on the A770's 1% lows. Those metrics got a massive boost in the latest driver, something I did not expect to ever see in a game this old. Guess there's some gas left in the tank after all. The A770 was also the only card to see improvements in Modern Warfare 2 at Ultra settings. As a side note, the game is showing no signs of losing folks' interest, and I've even found myself playing it a fair bit lately with friends. A competitive title like this really does benefit from higher frame rates when the exfil is on the line. Assassin's Creed Valhalla tells an overall pretty boring story. This is honestly to be expected with the X12 games, since the ARC series was tailored to these newer APIs to begin with. The only notable improvement here was the 1% lows at 1080p with the A770. Counter-Strike Global Offensive is a chart-topping DX9 title that literally put the ARC A700 series on its proverbial knees when the card launched. Well, thankfully, Intel has addressed that for the most part. Both GPUs are still a little weaker than their competing price point cards from Nvidia and AMD, but let's be honest here, this is a massive improvement and it was necessary. Forspoken may not be a crowd favorite, but it is a game that launched after the ARC A700 series and shows some increases over launch title performance. The A770 really benefits from the extra VRAM here, as well as the driver updates on this one, and I'm willing to bet that the A750 is running into VRAM problems here with these settings. Returnal is the final test, and I ran this one on Ultra settings without ray tracing, and the results were pretty solid on the get-go. And the A750 is closer in performance to the A770 than expected, and this is the newest title on the list and has only had one driver release since launch, but it was worth checking it out. When looking over everything, I'd say the overall performance has trended upwards, with some titles receiving more gains than others, and this was something that many had hoped to see happen, and it truly is indeed happening. It might not be as drastic as some would have hoped for, but it's a positive sign nonetheless, so hopefully Intel can continue with these improvements. So gaming performance has been boosted. What about general stability? Well, in the early days, this is what kept people like Brad and myself from being able to comfortably recommend either card to a non-enthusiast. There are general knowledge details like needing to enable resizable bar, and that's on top of the instability that the cards had in many aspects. While resizable bar is still needed, general stability hasn't been much of a problem for me anymore. Another aspect of Intel's launch was XeSS support. XeSS has been exploding on the market and is just as viable as making arguments for DLSS in gaming performance. I mentioned earlier that it was in Modern Warfare 2, and if you make use of it, expect quite the boost. I tested it at 1440p Ultra and found the A750 and A770 got quite the jump when running at XeSS balanced settings. It performs quite well, looks great in the games that I've tried it in, and is hardware agnostics. All great things to us gamers. And while this isn't purely about gaming, don't count out AV1 support. Intel Arc GPUs were the first to hit the market with AV1 support and the only ones in lower price ranges to include that feature right now. AV1 might not apply to you personally, but it's a great feature to have if you find you need it. So now I've looked at the past 6 months, and where does Intel go from here? Well, we know from our recent interview on The Full Nerd with Intel's Tom Peterson that we can expect DX11 improvements coming down the pipe. I, for one, would love to see a competitor to NVIDIA's broadcast suite, but I'd love to hear what you would want to see coming from Team Blue. While we have seen official price drops and great discounts, I know the price and performance aren't quite the death knell that many had hoped for. Intel has yet to force the whole market down with its launch into the GPU space, but it did have an impact. And it performs well against its direct competition, especially when it's on sale. But bringing new innovations like XeSS that more than Intel can take advantage of is great, and we need to see more features like that if the company really wants to put a dent into NVIDIA's mindshare. There are more reasons than just price alone that makes having a third player in the gaming graphics card space a good thing at the end of the day. Sure, there's a lot of rumors swirling about the future of ARC, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Intel has talked about learning from Alchemist's launch and applying it to the launch of Battlemage, and I hope they do. As I bring this to a close, I'm pretty happy with where ARC is right now and expect to see the future bring more improvements. But are you happy with the improvements? Have they not done enough, or have they exceeded your expectations? Let us know in the comments section, and be sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss even more PC hardware and software goodness.